What's up, everybody? Welcome to the vlog. My name is Filip Latocha, and today we are going to be talking about my form transition from heel striking in my early days into this mid-foot, forefoot hybrid strike variation that I've got going on right now, and how it's benefited me and how it's potentially negatively impacted me at this point in time in running, if there are any major setbacks and whatnot. That'll be the first part of the video, kind of going through a timeline of shoes and explaining how the form changed and whatnot. And the second half of this video, we'll be talking about if you wanted to transition your current running form into something similar to mine. If you think it's a good idea, if you go through these steps, this might be the way to do it. We'll kind of play through it in this video and see what happens. So before we get into it, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. 2021 is going to be pretty sick, assuming the rest of the world doesn't get sick anymore. And yeah, we're going to have some daily vlogs coming up. Still going to continue with the shoe reviews. Going to have some more miscellaneous videos like this, talking about various running concepts and things like that. And if you guys enjoy these, you know, just give me a thumbs up, let me know in the comments below, and without further ado, let's send it. So, first things first, let's make this very clear. I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a running doctor, I'm not an orthopedic of any sort, I don't do any sort of professional coaching and whatnot, so everything I say is anecdotal, things I've thought about a lot, but haven't done, like, an extensive amount of research on, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. I'm not, like, you know, the guru for information, so definitely don't sue me if you, like, hurt yourself from any of this information, because I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm just telling you what I've done and maybe suggestions and things to look at if, you know, you're looking to transition your form. So now that we got the really bad disclaimer out of the way, let's just talk about this running form. So I'm gonna put a picture up here on the side. I was looking through it for another video, and yeah, it's basically the O'Hare 5K on the runway race that I did in 2016. And as you can tell, this is a little bit later on in my running form transition period, where I have a pair of Brooks Adrenaline GTS 16s. And it's pretty evident in this particular picture that I do have a heel strike, and I used it during the 5K to run 23 minutes and 23 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. That's not really great. Is it due to the running form? It could be. Is it due to maybe my cardiovascular fitness? Definitely, for sure. I probably wasn't running more than 20 to 25 miles a week at this time. And yeah, as you can probably see, my form has come a long way since then. If you watch some of my vlog videos now and you see some of my shoe reviews, it's definitely changed a lot. So I'm going to minimize this for now. That's going to be a fun picture to analyze later on when we do my self-running form analysis and things we can change with it. But yeah, anyways, it's a good example to show you that this is basically where my form was at one point or another. But anyways, let's talk about this. So when I started off as a runner, I was probably heel striking. I probably never really noticed it. I had one pair of shoes at the time, and I had a pair for like adventure runs and whatnot. But then my first real racing pair of shoes was the Saucony Carnarvon 6. And this is the shoe I used during my first ever marathon, which was like somewhere between like 5 to 6 hours of just like free running that I just did on my own. And yeah, this was like still one of the coolest shoes I've ever owned. Loved this shoe's color scheme, and I thought, yeah, this is for sure where color plays into the concept of running fast. And yeah, that's how big science energy works, fellas. The more colorful your shoe, the faster you run in it. So as you can probably tell by the wear of this shoe, as we will demonstrate here, let me move my coffee so we don't get like shoe dust in it or whatever. As you can tell by the wear, it's pretty much all around the shoe, which kind of tells you that there's a very good chance that with this particular shoe and its 4mm offset, there was probably some heel striking involved, but there was also a lot of maybe mid-foot roll involved with this, and maybe at the time I was using this shoe a lot for walking as well, which is probably a very legitimate case as to why the wear is so even all across the shoe, especially if you're walking and then you're just heel striking and rolling with it. That could be definitely the case. As you can see by the heel, it definitely had some real wear and tear. It is shiny there. The shoe's probably experienced about 200 to 300 miles by the looks of it. I don't have an official documentation for it. But yeah, Saucony Carnarvon 16. Definitely my first marathon shoe ever. We'll keep this guy on the side. So that was kind of where it all started. I had really no idea about like, millimeter offsets, weights of the shoe. Wasn't really curious about it. But then after my marathon, I was doing some track intervals. And then it was the first time I experienced some serious knee pain and like shin splints. This is probably due to the fact that maybe after the marathon, I didn't give myself enough time to recover. Maybe there was issues that I was overcompensating with that got over amplified from speed workout with improper form, and it's very likely that this is the reason these things started happening, especially about 6 to 7 months into my running career. So at the time, I did take a little bit of a break from running, thinking I can get over the shin splints and whatever fractures were going on there. I believe because shin splints are technically go across this concept of micro fractures in your shin bone as well as the tendon attached to your shin bone, like disconnecting off the bone. Couple of things going on in there, but we're not going to get too deep into it. I have another video about it somewhere else. But then what happened was I did buy a new pair of running shoes from some running gurus in my like local area, and that's where the Brooks Adrenaline GTS 16 comes in. As you can see, this is a shoe that's definitely eaten up 500 to 600 miles easily. At the time that I had this shoe, again, I was running 20 to 25 miles a week, maybe 30 on some weeks. It was not a whole lot, but the idea with this shoe was that if I was heel striking, I was going to start hitting this fat heel here in the back, and maybe it was going to prevent a little bit of impact and whatnot. But at the same time, I'm going to show you guys this shoe right before we talk about it. Let me show you the bottoms. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. So, this is what our bottoms look like. The midfoots are very shined out. And then let's flip it to the heels. In the heel areas, you can see the shoe has definitely been beaten up in the right places, as you can tell. That the heel strike was pretty present at the time. But there's another thing that was going on, and this is something that was due to muscle weakness. As you can see on the insole, on this side of the shoe, it's pretty chopped up right here in the foam area, and that's most likely while I was running, the shoes could potentially be clipping one another as they were running, which is probably a sign of weak glutes, weak hamstrings, which is also something that can cause potential issues with shin splints, knee pains, and things like that, is just having muscular imbalances with your cardiovascular fitness. So that's something that was definitely getting over-exemplified in this particular pair of running shoes, which was a good sign and a good way to later on detail things that I can fix moving forward. The other things to know about this shoe was that at one point or another I was probably walking in these a lot, as you can tell by the wear, that it's less ripped and it's just shinier, and it's very likely I use these in the work field more or less, but the heels definitely have been getting chomped up here. Also at the same time, this was when I was beginning to remediate some of my shin splint issues. And one of those methods was to start running a little bit more on the treadmill, but at way slower paces, so I can just like pay attention to how my foot was hitting on the ground. And accidentally, over time, this form did begin changing. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later in the video as I start discussing it. But yeah, Brooks Adrenaline GTS 16. I had two pairs of these, ones that I donated, and these I still have, more or less, basically, kind of taking a step in my form recovery journey, more or less. So that's pair number 2. Pair number 3, which I bought on my own because of the research I did, was the Hoka One One Arahi 16s, I want to say. I don't think that's correct, though. But they are one of the Arahis that I bought in 2016, 2017, and I love this shoe. It was marketed as like a marshmallow landing, and boy, was that the case. So, again, because I'm still very hyper-conscious about shin splint issues and knee soreness and whatnot, the knee pain started going away, mostly from some other stuff that was going on, in addition to being more conscious of my running form. But, let's look at the bottoms of these shoes. So these I know I definitely walked around in at some point after I did retire them. But we'll talk about the significant pieces of the shoe as you see. So, of course, the Arahi was very comfortable to land in all the time. And by this point, I was definitely having a midfoot strike, as you can probably tell by the wear and tear of these shoes, particularly in this area right there. That will definitely tell you that I was running a little bit faster and I was a lot more conscious of the way the foot was landing on the ground. And even in some instances, you can see where the forefoot technique starts developing a little bit as it's beginning to rip in this particular area right there. The heel area, we do have a splotch right here on the inside, which could be due more from walking, but it doesn't look way too shredded to the point where I can assume running definitely did it. Definitely on the sides here on the inside, that might be the case that this was evident. Again, maybe there was a little bit of overpronation going on, but it was probably getting cleared up with something like this that's a lot more stable, not so quick. It's possible, but again, there's still the things going on with like potentially weak glutes and weak hamstrings, as you can see the paint of the inside area of the shoe getting quite ripped up. But our usual culprit area of the shoe is not too bad. So that would be this area right here that I typically wear out and rip. It's still pretty much intact. Not so bad, I suppose. And then on the left foot, I guess, again, because of walking, this piece of rubber eventually got ripped off, and this one as well did get ripped off. And yeah, as you can tell, the wear is pretty consistent all the way through, which is indicating more of this midfoot striking area. So by the time I get into this Hoka Arahi shoe in like 2017, maybe even 2018, the form is definitely getting better, which brings us to the last shoe on my list to talk about, which is the Nike Zoom Fly. If you had one of these, especially in this color, you're a real one, because this shoe was basically the like second or third official racing shoe, and my basically, how would I put it? My reintroduction into Nike running shoes. And basically, I loved this shoe, and I used it like throughout the entire 2018 running circuit, I would say. Anytime I had a race or anything like that, this was my go-to shoe. I did have a white version of this shoe with like a different mesh upper at the time, but it was one of those Zoom Fly series shoes, and this was like, if you remember this in 2018, this was such a hot shoe to run in. But as you can tell by the bottoms of these shoes, let's see if I can show them like this, you can now see that the wear and tear patterns are beginning to resemble a lot more of what I am running in now, which is that the right foot is beginning to have this shred in this forefoot area. And is it due to the fact that there's a plate in this shoe and that may be playing a piece of this? It could be. It could also be due to the fact that maybe this rubber insole, outsole area is also a little bit thinner. The shoe's a little bit heavier, so maybe it's taken more of a beating. But ultimately, what I can say about this is that by the time I got into this shoe, I had zero knee pain. I didn't have any shin splint issues. I was running somewhere between 50 to 60 miles a week regularly during the race season. And yeah, by the time I retired this shoe, I got into like a physical condition in 2019 that better is understood for what I'm doing right now. So if you're watching my Strava, like, you basically know that this was a long time coming to get into the speed and form that I have now. And yeah, the last race that this shoe ever did was the Chicago Triathlon in 2018. And I did straight up rip this shoe just totally here on the side of the toe box. Just because, you know, this upper was not very strong, and this shoe ate like 250, 300, maybe even 400 miles. I like totally lost track of it, but man, did I love these shoes. I would not buy it again only because it's such a heavy shoe, but if they do make a next percent in this exact color, I would totally buy it. Anyways, that's what I got in terms of the shoes there. So let's talk about the second half of this video. So, more or less, it's discussing with you if you want to go into changing your stride from a heel strike to a forefoot strike, or something resembling something that I do, or just if you're experiencing pain or soreness after your runs that resembles shin splints or like knee soreness, and you think it's due to your running form, these are some things we can suggest that could or maybe should not help you. So again, like I mentioned in the earlier disclaimer, I'm not a running doctor or anything of that sort. I'm not a medical professional. Let's make this also very clear in our disclaimer. If you're experiencing like major pain while you're running, this is the point of the video where you stop and you go seek medical attention. Like, I'm not going to give you advice on how to deal with tremendous pain in your body, because that could be a result of different things going on that I might not be aware of. You might have broken bones if you're experiencing tremendous amounts of pain. That's not my specialty, okay? I don't deal with that. So we're talking about like soreness. We're talking about, you're just feeling really achy and just really beat up after your runs, and you don't do like a huge amount of distance. You don't do a whole lot of mileage per week. So it's not like enough to kind of, push that sort of pain to that point. So anyways, yeah, let's get into it. Here's my list. I've got a list, so we'll break it down. So number one, on this list is to analyze shoe wear and determine strike zones. That's kind of a given. You should probably first determine whether you're even heel striking and if this is something you're conscious of, if this is something you're aware of, because when I was running, I wasn't really aware of it, and I wasn't basically aware of how inefficient my running stride and strike was at the time, because when you are heel striking with a shoe, you gotta look at it this way, that you hit the ground, and then sometimes your foot may roll, and then it launches off, which might not be the worst stride tactic, but when I was running, I would hit the ground, it would slap, and then it would kick off. And that was, in my opinion, highly inefficient, given the fact that most of my races at the time never exceeded over 7:30 pace general in basically all of those running categories, whether it be the 5K, half marathon, marathon. They would never go over 7:30 in this particular form. So that's something for us to analyze. And of course, the easiest way to analyze is to see how the wear in your heel is comparing to the rest of your shoe. This will be a lot harder if your running shoe is also your daily walker and work shoe. So this is where it's good to have dedicated shoes to each activity, in my opinion. That's the best way to extend your running shoe life and whatnot. Piece number two, identify soreness patterns. Right, okay, so in my particular case, when I was heel striking a lot, there was an immense amount of pain in my basically in my shins in the posterior area, which in this particular instance is just this inside shin splint area. And that was due mostly to the fact that whenever I was heel striking in the shoe, heel striking with a form where your knee is mostly straight creates a shock that goes across your shin bone, and that does start creating shin splint symptoms and could eventually lead to much crazier things as you go on. But that initial shock of you heel striking and causing the tendon across your shin to start basically ripping off the shin bone and causing some pain and a lot of uncomfort is something to be aware of while you're heel striking. That being said, this shock also does go into your knee, and you can experience pain in your knee maybe somewhere in this teardrop muscle area, as this is a high impact zone while you're running, especially because when you hit the ground, it's one of the first muscles in your quad to kind of like slam into your knee and create this more or less shock absorber for your hip. So that's something definitely to be paying attention to. What else could be sore? Hamstrings might be sore. That might just be more of like a muscular, I'm not going to say deficiency, but maybe something you're going to be more focused on working out, I would say. Glutes can definitely be sore. If your glutes are sore after running, that's actually a good thing. That means you're activating your glutes, and that means they're getting stronger as you're going on during your run, because that's one really important thing in running, is that it's all in the hips. Like, I mean it. Shoes are second most important, but keeping your hips in the best condition possible will help your running form and strike, and everything else follow accordingly. Number three. Okay, so you've identified the soreness patterns. Number three says this. So I put down slow down all paces and start lifting weights. That's kind of like a double-edged sword, I would say. So what that means is if you're running some kind of daily pace and you're experiencing pain from it, or not pain necessarily, but soreness, it's important to slow down your runs daily. And if the pain starts subsiding while you're running slower, that's a good thing. That means that maybe you're putting a little more emphasis on protecting, some of the areas that are of high impact, and you're also going to be helping better your form as you're going along. So you're less focused on, this cardiovascular strength, but now you're trying to get your muscular form to catch up while you're running. Also, what will happen when you slow down in most cases is that your form is going to improve naturally from either not overstriding, which in this case is, I don't have the picture pulled up, and I guess we'll analyze it later, but if, I'll try to pull up a different picture and see if I can get like the example right, but basically what overstriding is if your foot is basically going further then I think it's either your hips or your head. I gotta like double check, and I'll put the picture up here somewhere. But yeah, if you're overstriding, that's gonna cause a little bit of shock in your knees, shins, possibly your foot in some places if you're not executing your stride form and like your hip form correctly. So by slowing down, you should be slightly correcting the overstride, maybe some of the pronation issues you may have. And that should overall help you. I know it helped me at least for sure to slow down and like run 10-minute per mile treadmill sessions in like my Brooks Adrenaline GTS 16s, just so I wasn't striking more with my heel because I had to, create a much wider gait, much wider stride just to run faster. Instead, I was just taking smaller steps, less of a turnover, I guess you can say, and then in turn, the heel strike kind of started disappearing, and we got into this more midfoot area strike as a result. And I think that happened more or less because that's a lot more natural for a human to do in terms of walking and running. But because we started implementing running shoes, because we had these heavy heels on them, the heel strikes started coming in naturally as a consequence of such. Is it a bad thing? Again, it's hard to say, but I think naturally we were supposed to be midfoot strikers all along. Okay, and then the second part of that was lifting weights. So this is where you start fixing some of the imbalances you may or may not have had as a result of running really fast and having really poor form. So, like I mentioned, hips, very important stuff to keep strong all the time. You can do like hip bridges if you don't have weights. Squats are really good. My personal favorite, box squats, are definitely extremely awesome. And then anything that just involves your hip workouts, hip mobility, so resistant band things, just start working out those little muscles in the hip area, especially the glutes to, of course, increase the strength there. Anything for hamstrings, also very good. But the trick here is you want your hips to, in a sense, to be stronger than your hamstrings, because at some point you can have some form issues where your knees may start grazing each other if your hamstrings are stronger than your glutes and they're overcompensating. Your form can be negatively affected in that sense, and it is very noticeable when you see it when people are like running and you see their knees are like caving in while they're running. That means their hamstrings are typically stronger than their glutes, and they gotta fix that. Okay, and then of course, the big ones with shin splints, right? Calf raises are good. Trying to do like toe walks with weights. That's also going to be good for the, the gastrocnemius area of the calf, the soleus muscle. So let me point these out. The gastrocnemius is obviously the big one that's right here underneath my sweatpants. The soleus calf muscle is the one that's right underneath it right here. If you get those guys really strong, that's also going to be really good for your form. And historically, that has helped my stride and form a lot. And yeah, I can't really give much more than that. Just keep working those muscles out, either through weightlifting, through running. Running obviously makes your calf muscles pretty strong and pretty resilient in the process, but definitely don't forget the weight training for sure. Number 4 on this list is patience and record weekly data. You could record the weekly data if you want, but the idea here is to be patient. Like, running is a long distance, long time, long effort sport. You're not going to see results overnight. So this is something that maybe for like 6 to 8 weeks you guys continue on, and you'll maybe start gradually seeing your form improve. Maybe you'll see your muscular strength while running improve as well. Sometimes this could take more. This could take like maybe even up to a year for some people, depending on how diligent they are about it. But for me, it took like definitely half a year to get from a place of heel striking and not being aware of it to the point where I was midfoot striking and upping my distance by 50% at the time. So like in 2016, if I was running like 20 to 25 miles a week, by the time I got to like the next year and running in the Hokas, I must have upped it by like 25 to 50%. So I was running like maybe 40 miles a week, and that was like a huge accomplishment at the time. And then by the time I got into my forefoot strike, I was now pushing the distances we see now, which is like anywhere from 50 to 90 miles a week, depending on training loads and things like that. So yeah, if you record the weekly data, just record how you're feeling. If you're experiencing the same knee pains, shin splint pains, things like that, that's kind of what I'm trying to get at when I say record weekly data. And then number 5, last piece of advice is to continue monitoring and training accordingly. Obviously, so your form may deteriorate if you stop training altogether, if you go cold turkey on running. But of course, with monitoring, that's like looking at your shoes, seeing where your wear patterns are. If you are seeing more wear patterns in your forefoot, midfoot area rather than the heel, maybe you're doing the right thing. If you're experiencing less pain, again, look at where your shoes' impact zones are and see if it's directly correlated to where you've experienced pain in the past. So like again, when I was running in the Zoom Fly 3s here, this particular pair, I had zero pain in my knees, zero pain in my shins. I was just running 50 to 60 miles a week, and as you can tell, the forefoot area was the area that was experiencing a lot more impact. And when I was running in the Saucony Carnarvon 6, when I ran my first marathon, the wear is kind of all over the place, but the heel area is definitely a major culprit of wear and tear. And I knew at the time that I was heel striking and that I was very weak. And as a result of my own advice, I did improve from this weird low area of training. So that's all the advice I got for now. If you guys have any tips of jumping from heel to forefoot techniques, or if you did the opposite, if you were a forefoot runner and you're now a heel striker and you're just better, comment that down below. I would like to, I'm just very curious to see if there are people who are like that and how that's going for them. But that's all I got in terms of advice. If you guys want to ask me questions, go ahead. Like I said, I'm not a medical professional, but like I have a lot of anecdotal, like self-research I've done on myself, and basically this is just kind of the stuff I've come up with. So thanks again for watching this video. Make sure you like it, subscribe to YouTube channel, smash that MF and like button. It'll be really helpful to this video, to this channel. It's a lot of good stuff, of course. So with that in mind, yeah, that's all I've got for now. I really flew through that. This coffee must be fire today to be like spitting the way I am. So anyways, thanks for watching this video. I'll see you guys real soon.